Chad, good afternoon. Congratulations to your Vols, champions in the world of college baseball.
Finally, Hutton, no longer just champions of life, now actual champions on the field and something.
Well done.
Feels very good to be a national champion today.
Well, they earned it, man.
They did.
Solid team, great program. And was anything mentioned about greatest team that we've seen with the 60 wins and the domination through the number one ranking both in the SEC, where they ended the regular season, where they end on top of the mountain here as the champions of college baseball?
Yeah, I posed that question, and I know last night, once the broadcast ended, they went to Scott Van Pelt and Sports Center. They had a graphic of the 3 best winning percentages to also win the national title. It was Vanderbilt in 2019, Rice, I forget what year it was, in Tennessee in winning percentage. But Tennessee became the first ever SEC program to win 60 games in a season, and they completed the clean sweep. They won the SEC regular season, they won the SEC tournament, and they won the national tournament in winning the College World Series in 3 games over another SEC power in Texas A&M. So you consider that. They finished second all-time, I believe, in home runs. They're the first ever college baseball team to have 5 guys go for more than 20 home runs in a season. Yeah, I mean, we could look back years from now and say, well, how many Major League Baseball players did that team produce?
That's how we'll remember.
We'll look back and say,
historically, this guy played for the Tennessee team that did this.
There were 3 All-Stars that came off that team or whatever, right? And then you'll look back and say, okay, they're one of the best ever.
But when you think of Texas baseball, you think of
I don't know
Clemens.
enough about the history of college baseball to really have a say in whether or not they're the best. I just know that being the first SEC program to win 60 games is very, very impressive. Texas has won more national titles than anyone with 6.
Yeah.
Now think about Texas and Oklahoma, another great baseball program, moving into the SEC that is so dominant. 4 of the last 5 national champions coming out of the SEC, and all different programs now. And this has been a steady climb to the top of the sport for Tony Vitello ever since he took over at Tennessee. We said it coming into this tournament, Hutton, the only thing left for Tony Vitello to accomplish was a national title. He's done everything else. Top recruiting classes, guys getting drafted in Major League Baseball, attention, eyeballs on him, SEC titles, number 1 overall seeds, all of that. Also, Tennessee becomes the first number 1 overall seed to win all since Miami in 1999. And crazy is the word I would use to describe the ascension of Tennessee baseball under Tony Vitello. They got the number 1 recruiting class in the country, scheduled to come in next year. We'll see how many of those guys decide to go pro, depending on where they're drafted. But Tennessee baseball is not going anywhere. They're getting a much better stadium. Now that construction's already underway with it, they're going to sign him to a long-term contract. Sorry, Texas fans or eventually Arkansas fans. Probably not going to happen.
And it wouldn't matter the number, probably.
Yeah, he's got his pitcher who starred last night, Xander Sechrist, addressing Danny White in the postgame press conference saying, go ahead and give this guy a lifetime contract if you can. And I don't think Tennessee fans would argue with that right about now.
They're saying that now, one of the players to the athletic director, where just over 2,500 days ago, he took the job.
Athletics Director John Curry joins us. Tony, congratulations. An exciting day for you and your family.
Thank you. I appreciate it. The most exciting day I've ever had, to be honest with you. And it's an incredible opportunity to be here. So I want to soak up today a little bit, but there's a lot of work to be done too.
You have been on the short list for a lot of head coaching jobs in the last couple of years. Why was Tennessee the right fit, you think, right now?
I think it's the right fit for anybody. To say no to, like I said, an opportunity like this would be insane. But it happened to work out well for me because I've been able to get some experience in the league, learn the coaches, and the type of players you have to win in this league.
There's Tony V, who joined us last week, and catch that interview out online with YouTube plus OutKick.com/shows. Chad, describe the Tennessee baseball program in your mind that day when Vitello was like, well, I had to take over this program. I had to take this offer. I had to take this job.
Struggling?
Yeah, I mean,
one that
not relevant.
Not relevant. One that you really couldn't see a way out. You know, it was more, let's see if somebody can get Tennessee baseball back to an NCAA tournament to be one of the 64 teams participating in that. I don't think anyone other than maybe Tony Vitello could have envisioned this being the outcome 6 years later with Tennessee baseball at that time. Small stadium, one of the worst in the SEC.
Not just the outcome 6 years later, but 4 years later, they should have won.
Yeah.
They had that team. So, I mean, it happened much faster than even 6 years when they actually hoist the trophy, if you think about it. Or should have, based on the talent
and
that
not
they
just
had.
that, you've got Vanderbilt in the state getting all the top talent in the state at that time. They had won one national championship at that point. They'd go on to win a second.
Tons
in
of
2019,
pitchers in the majors, plenty of talent.
They would, in 2020, they'd lose in the championship series to Mississippi State, but make it back to the championship series. So
that's right.
You look at the dominance of Tim Corbin's program and what was happening at Vanderbilt. It felt like Tennessee had almost just conceded baseball to the Commodores and conceded baseball within the athletic department. And credit John Curry, who made a lot of mistakes in his short tenure at Tennessee. He made one great decision, and that was Tony Vitello, because he's the hottest coach in baseball right now. He's arguably the best coach in college baseball right now. He's certainly coveted by every program in America, Tennessee included, at this point in time, because the rise of the program, how quick it's happened, and the fact that there's no end in sight for this Tennessee baseball program. And it's changed a lot of minds of Tennessee fans about college baseball. Heck, I'll admit it. I'm one of them. I'm not following the sport as a whole, but it's a hell of a lot of fun watching your team be great in college baseball. And it's been a lot of fun watching the rise of this Tennessee baseball program. And I was celebrating alongside every other Tennessee fan or alum last night when that final strike happened. That strikeout made Tennessee national champions. It's been fun to watch. It's changed the outlook of baseball within that program, within the state of Tennessee. And it's been remarkable to see that rise, Hutton. It is also incredible that, I posted last night, hey, Tennessee is an everything school because of their success in major sports. And I immediately get blowback to that because of Olympic sports out there. First, though, I do want to play Peyton Manning's take on this and let people hear from the sheriff himself in Omaha what he had to say last night after Tennessee won it all.
Keeping the guys that were here, enabling them, empowering them, and obviously hiring some great guys. And to sit up there with Rick Barnes and Josh Heupel tonight and watch this, I'm telling you, this is not the last, right? Tennessee's coming in all sports. And it's a special night, but this is the first of several to come. I really believe that.
Now, Peyton Manning is feeling himself a bit right there, and he's saying Tennessee's coming, and they're coming in all sports. It's tough to argue that. I'm looking at in the box last night, Peyton Manning, Morgan Wallen, also in the mix with Rick Barnes and Josh Heupel. And it is impossible not to love the state of Tennessee athletics right now.
Hey, and the jinx is over, because it was almost impossible for many fans to see Peyton Manning at a game and think that they were going to win.
Yeah.
Right? And now you've got that monkey off your back, too.
Well, and I thought
everything's looking up.
Yeah, I thought Ryan McGee, who's a really good writer at ESPN, wrote a good piece. He's a Tennessee grad also, but about being there in the game and the amount of Tennessee fans who were pacing in the concourse, telling people to stop jinxing the team, telling people to get up and move in the last inning somewhere else. That had just become the mindset of all Tennessee fans, that whatever can go wrong will go wrong.
Yeah.
And when the pitcher balks to first base because the guy's at second and he doesn't realize he's moved to second, then he has a wild pitch and it's suddenly a one-run game. Yeah, the minds of Tennessee fans immediately shifted to, this is about to be a home run to tie it, and they're going to lose the national championship in this moment. And it's not that because Tony Vitello's teams don't think that way. Instead, Aaron Combs, the pitcher on the mound, is laughing hysterically at himself and even mouthing, oh shit, I didn't know that he moved to second, and he's laughing with his catcher about it, and he shakes off a wild pitch and executes a great two-strike pitch for the out, and Tennessee's national champions. It is a different time on Rocky Top right now. There's a different sense of where the programs are headed. Certainly where they are right now, you got to like it. You got to admire what's happening. Danny White in the same box, Rick Barnes, all those guys watching the game. And Hutton, I talk about Tennessee being an everything school right now, and baseball sort of leading the way with that. But immediately Florida fans are coming after me, and Stanford people, and Texas. Well, if it's an everything school, Florida's won a national championship in at least one sport over the last 14 years. They've done this and that. Let's talk a little bit about college sports success, okay?
The hierarchy.
Because there is a hierarchy, and I do think that there are varying levels of success based on program or whoever you root for. And everyone's level of how they judge success can be different. The only barometer is not and cannot be national championships in all sports, okay? Wake Forest getting to a college baseball national championship series a year ago and having 3 of the top 10 prospects in the Major League Baseball draft, that's a hell of an accomplishment for Wake Forest. Wake Forest fans and grads aren't walking around saying, man, I mean, why can't we win a national title in football? How have we not won a national title recently in basketball? How is this not happening for our program? Even though they're in the ACC, they're in a Power 5 conference. It's different. The expectation at Wake Forest is not to win national championships. It's to go to bowl games and be competitive in football. It's to occasionally make the NCAA tournament in basketball. Now the expectations are higher in baseball because they've done a heck of a job making that baseball program relevant. Women's basketball, I don't even know what the expectations are. Softball, I don't even know if they have a softball team. No idea. I just listed, by the way, the 5 sports that people actually watch on television at some point in time. They're not watching it all the time, but people are watching the women's college tournament and the World Series in softball. People are watching women's college basketball now at a higher rate than ever because of one Caitlin Clark and her effect on the sport. They've always watched the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Certainly they're watching men's college basketball and definitely the men's college basketball tournament in March Madness. Football, let's not even get started. Football is where it all begins and ends. It is the alpha and the omega, and I don't mean to get biblical on this, but in college sports, football is the beginning and the end of all discussions because it is the top eyeball driver and money driver for all of college sports. So one program's definition of success can be 37,000 men's and women's swimming and diving national championships, like at Florida or at Stanford or somewhere else. Olympic sports are a big deal at certain places. Why? Because they always win the Olympic sports. Let me tell you how often I care about Olympic sports. Every 4 years when the Olympics are happening.
Bump, 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 bump. It's this year.
That is when I care about the Olympics. When I hear that theme music right there, and I used to hear Bob Costas come on with the preview
pink eye.
of the
Remember
night.
he had pink eye?
Yeah, for the whole Olympics. And the man soldiered on and fought through it. But Bob Costas with pink eye, talking about guys getting in a swimming pool, that's when I care about Olympic sports. Don't kid yourselves and act like because you can brag about Olympic sport national championships, that makes you bigger and badder than some other college sports program out there. No one else really cares about it. Good for you. It's great. If you've got athletes on scholarship at your school, they should be competing to win and win at the highest level. And if you're winning national titles, great. Good for you. No one else cares. Let me give you my definition of success for my alma mater, Tennessee. And you can think about this in terms of your school, someone else's school, whatever you want to look at it as. It's what's happening right now at Tennessee. That's it. That's the definition of it. The men's basketball program just went to the Elite Eight. They were in the Sweet 16 the year before. And Rick Barnes, once again, will have this roster in contention to be a top 10 team, maybe top 5 team. They've been ranked number 1 in the nation each of the last 2 seasons. They're very, very relevant, and they're going to the tournament and having some success year after year after year. The football program has won a combined 20 games over 2 years. And, oh, by the way, that's just year 2 and 3 under Josh Heupel. He is still relatively new at the job, and they've got a 6'6" stud quarterback who may lead them to the promised land. I count that as success for Tennessee football, even if they haven't won the SEC or a national championship in the last 2 years, the Alpha and the Omega. Baseball just won a national title, so we can move on from that. Women's basketball has participated in every single women's basketball tournament since it's existed.
Did they have brackets?
They haven't missed one. According to,
it was Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. They don't have brackets, but
2021 was the first bracket.
You know, there's AD and BC. According to Kamala Harris, there's PB, pre-bracket. Tennessee was dominating that tournament in PB times, pre-bracket for the NCAA women's tournament. Women's basketball just hired a new coach. Their coach got fired for going to the tournament every year and not doing enough, okay? They hired a new coach there. The softball program is one of the 5 to 10 best in America, pretty much annually at this point. They got to a super regional. That is my definition of an everything school. They're good in the sports that matter and matter to most people. Are they winning a national championship in every single sport? No, because no one does that in college sports. Point to me the team that in the last 3 years has won consistent national championship across those 5 sports that I just mentioned. Now point to me programs that have done a lot better than Tennessee combined in those 5 sports. That list is small and may even be non-existent. Now, let's get to the elephant in the room, or the Crimson Tide elephant in the room. Football matters more. Georgia football is so damn good right now, it does not matter if they're good in men's basketball or baseball or women's basketball. I don't even know how good
Chad,
they are in women's basketball.
Here's all you need to know. They're not a part of the discussion. They're not Florida, who's jumping into the mix to argue with you.
No.
That's the point.
No.
There's no need for Georgia to get involved with this discussion.
Look,
that's all you need to say.
That's the separation,
Yeah.
right? Like, if you're that good in football, everything else can fall apart, and you're still going to be okay. So it's the great equalizer. It's the great eraser. Go up on the board and say, boy, we've sucked in men's basketball for a while. Why? We're so close to Atlanta. I don't know why Georgia men's basketball sucked for so long. I don't get it.
Right.
But it also doesn't matter to Georgia fans because they're more concerned with football recruiting during that time, and they can easily turn off the TV if their basketball team's not good. Football matters more. Football can erase the errors of other sports, and it can make you forget about it. If football sucks, it really puts the emphasis on the other sports to rise above their standard and be even better, to give a college fan base something to cheer for in football offseason. Okay? So I'll fully acknowledge Tennessee winning a baseball national championship, awesome. If Tennessee won a baseball national championship and Josh Heupel was on the hot seat after going 2-10 last year, it would still feel different. It would not feel as good. It would be a relief. It'd be, boy, it's nice to have something to feel good about. But the overall feeling around the athletic program would not be as good. Why? Because football's not as good. Football matters more than anything else, unless you're at a Duke or a North Carolina or the exception programs, UConn, where basketball is king and in many cases queen with the women's basketball program also. Other than that, everywhere else football is the driver. So Tennessee is an everything school right now. I would classify other programs as everything schools when they have the success Tennessee's having in football, men's and women's basketball, baseball, and softball. When they're having that success, even if they're not winning every national title, but if they win one of them, they're an everything school. Doesn't mean they're better than everyone else at those sports. Doesn't mean that there's not other everything schools out there. They're an everything school. And stop with the Olympic sport comparisons. I'm really proud of you, Stanford. Great job. You're going to win the Capital One Cup for the 17th year in a row, or whatever it is, or Florida, or whoever it is. But when you are bragging about men's and women's diving championships, that's a sure sign indicator that your football coach is on the hot seat, if that's what you're bragging about. And that's Florida right now.
Oh, no doubt. Steve Spurrier back in March is saying, what are we doing in terms of the football program?
I'm really going to care about those Florida Gator Olympic sports athletes when they're competing in the Olympics for America come here in a couple weeks. That's when I'll care about them. And that's what everyone else will too, during the Olympics.
Chad, I was making a note there because we've got John McClain coming up, and Brandon Ayuk is making some headlines where Washington has turned down a trade offer, potentially. We'll dive into that. Also, just while we're on college baseball, so not Vitello to Texas, but Schlossnagle is apparently mulling over an offer, and the Aggies are trying to convince him to stay.
His response to the question last night I thought was good. It also...
Decision likely by Tuesday night, according to Brent
It also
Vernon.
would not have given me a lot of confidence if I was A&M. His response to the question is one of the early questions. Can you comment on the rumors about Texas and an offer to you? And he said that's an unfair question. Basically, that's unfair right now. I don't know the whole situation. He said he left his family for that job.
Huh.
I'm just reading the quote, but he said, I left my family to coach here at A&M with the intention of being here and this being my last job. And he said, nothing's happened to where this still would not be my last job, is what he said.
When, if ever, are we going to see some of these guys make the jump from head coach of the college program to the majors? Because I'm just looking.
They do just get siloed into each individual sport. Like your college throughout, And then if you get in the minor league system, you can work your way up.
Craig Counsell's making $40 million over 5 years to be the manager of the Cubs. So, I mean, if you're thinking that type of money, that's what colleges are paying now. I mean, they weren't, but they are. If you're going to try to keep up with what Tennessee and Texas and others are willing to pay, it's on the same pay scale.
And you're right. And also, Hutton, think about Tony Vitello from a football standpoint. If there was a Tony Vitello for a college football program that just accomplished that in a short amount of time at Tennessee, his name would be mentioned for every NFL job. Right?
Yes.
To eventually make the jump.
Yes.
And you don't hear about that with MLB. That's a good point.
With a championship level pedigree.
Yeah.
You know, that's the next. I wonder if that begins to tip towards more action in that. Like the manager for the Mets, he's making $4.5 million. What was Texas going to throw around? Isn't that around the number? I was hearing yesterday. I'm just saying, like, just comparing the money. I mean, SEC football coaches are making
Carlos Mendoza, the Mets manager.
Their SEC football coaches are making sometimes more than NFL head coaches. But I mean, we're really going to see salaries rise above what Major League Baseball could offer. And in today's age, I mean, you're practically already running your own farm system from the collegiate level.
It's a good point. There's not a lot of crossover with that. I don't know if it's the bat difference or what is seen as so. The sports are. It's the same sport. The games are different. We've seen it in college and pro.
You know, we don't see it a lot, but we see it in the NBA.
Yeah,
we've certainly seen failure and very small success in the NFL. Yeah, I mean, I would think baseball you could have that type of success, especially in the analytical era.
I know that. Greg McElroy disagrees with me, who basically called
so what's
Tony
his
Vitello a clown. I was listening to that before the show. Said that he would be embarrassed that if I'm his boss, I'd have a talk with him about his antics after the win. I'm thinking because he ran into the crowd and jumped into it and celebrated with his family and Tennessee fans. And
I like Greg, but like his baseball coach was helping bet on games.
Yeah, and
you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's not Nick Saban. Like, that's the comparison point I get to with Greg. And I like Greg, too. But Greg McElroy's example is, here's Nick Saban, who, at least publicly with the media, is seemingly always somewhat calm and doesn't over-celebrate and all that, may crack a smile after a national championship. Tony Vitello is a kind of a wild, emotional Italian guy, and that's self-described. He's going to react with emotion a lot of the time. And I got no issue with that because, ultimately, I do think that Tony Vitello, with his guys, he's about the right stuff. I think he gets it from his dad, who was a high school coach. His dad's crying after the game. He's emotional when he does the post-game interview. I don't feel like, and Tony Vitello talking about being a good teammate, right? You know, that he's preaching about that everyone that plays the SEC, you're going to be a stud player.
There's no
the separation is being a good teammate. That's a good message.
Winning the Super Regional, there's no complaining about what he said at the podium there.
No.
You know, like, and I mean, I'm not saying that McElroy's looking for an excuse to complain about Tony Vitello, but I mean, if you went into that game, you could probably say Vitello's going to say something or do something in the game that's going to spark some type of controversy.
Yeah.
Because he's going to be himself.
It's not fake.
You know what I mean? No, exactly.
That's the thing.
No,
it's not, I don't feel like it's artificial. And I mean, yeah, should he cool it at times? Like, does he need to get ejected from games? No. And I'm sure that Danny White and him have conversations about that because he is so. Danny White, by the way, after the game said, this baseball program is the best in the country, and it's 100% because of this guy. That's a dude ready to announce a big payment and contract extension for someone, to admit that publicly. He said it's all about him and what he's done with the baseball program. I got no issue with it. I mean, look, if Tennessee's kicking your ass, then it's going to bother you. I understand that. I mean, if you're on the other side of it, you're not going to like it, but they're really good. I mean, they're really, really good. And when you really hear Tony Vitello speak, like we did with our interview with him, which you can catch on the website, or like you heard in that post-game address after beating Evansville, there's not a lot not to like about the dude. And great point, Hutton, about Major League Baseball. If I'm trying to turn around my franchise,
you need a little energy.
There's not a lot not to like about Tony Vitello other than what he wasn't a great player that played in the majors. I mean, are guys not going to respect him because of that? I don't see it. I'm not trying to get him out of Tennessee. Trust me. I think he's going to stay in college baseball, but
I think that's the only way that he could bolt at this point.
It'd be for a major league job.
I think. Yeah. I mean, and we just don't see that. So I mean, he in essence, Chad, you mentioned the lifetime contract. Well, one of the players was vouching for that. I mean, he's about to get it. Is he not? I can't imagine him leaving for another situation unless there's a new AD that comes in and pisses him off.
There is no way that Tennessee.
He's got everything he wants.
I mean, by the way, I'm getting hit up and everyone's asking me, who's the older bald gentleman in that box with Peyton Manning and Rick Barnes? And I'm thinking, I don't even know. I didn't even have to look. And I just said, someone really rich. Like one of the richest boosters, the guy right there in the middle. I don't know who that is. I'm sure I could send one text out and find out immediately who it is. But my first response is, there's Morgan Wallen from right to left. Morgan Wallen standing, Danny White, Tennessee Athletic Director, Josh Heupel standing, now left to right, Rick Barnes sitting, Peyton Manning sitting, and this man in the middle.
And Brent Hubbs is behind the glass.
I'm willing to bet Austin Price probably on the other side of that rail. I'm willing to bet that guy's got a lot of money.
Has Heupel lost weight?
And I think he loses weight in the offseason. I think he gains weight in the season sometimes. Look,
good for him.
That guy's got a ton of money. And my point in this is the dude sitting in the suite with Peyton and Heupel and Barnes, there's a number of those guys out there. They are not going to be outbid for Tony Vitello. Whatever Texas thinks they can pay and whatever they're willing to pay.
Especially now.
Tennessee, if it came down to you will pay me more than this amount they're offering or I will leave for this job, they will pay him. He is going to be making a ton of money. If not the highest paid coach in college baseball, he'll be top 3 with this next contract. I'm willing to bet that's going to be the case.
Chad, we have a Stanley Cup champ. The title is in Florida.
Your Florida Panthers.
The Florida Panthers. Congratulations to Colin. His Florida Panthers. They are skating the trophy last night. And, it's making the rounds. I mean, they had it on the beach. Stanley Cup is on the beach. Not in Canada. Not back in Canada. But we see it paraded in Florida. Watch for the sightings of sharks, Chad.
Is this in Miami? I'm just curious when a team is in Sunrise, Florida,
like
where they
Fort
play
Lauderdale?
their home games. Like, where do they go? Fort Lauderdale, Miami?
I feel like we see more women if it were Miami.
When you are a state team and you're not specifically, it's not like the Marlins that are now in Miami.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just curious. I guess they celebrate in Miami.
You're saying like Tampa did it better?
Well, they're not. Well, Tampa, I know where Tampa is. It's in Tampa. Most people don't even know.
Miami's so spread out.
Most people don't know where the Florida Panthers are located. Even if you ask sports fans, they're in the middle of sort of the hinterlands between Fort Lauderdale and Miami, west of both, not on the beach. They're not going to have a Stanley Cup parade in Sunrise.
Look at this baptism.
So will they go to Miami or Fort Lauderdale would be my question.
My guess is Fort Lauderdale.
I do love to swim in the ocean.
My guess is Fort Lauderdale because I'm just going based on the
Fort
apparel.
Lauderdale's team?
The apparel of those on the beach. I'm saying Fort Lauderdale over Miami.
It feels more like Fort Lauderdale's team. If I had to guess the vibe of the Florida Panthers, I've been to a Florida Panthers game. It's just it's an arena just in a weird spot.
Well, so is the football stadium.
Yeah.
So is Hard Rock Stadium.
Nice area.
It was Fort Lauderdale.
Colin's
like Fort Lauderdale. It gives a thumbs up.
Oh, there you go. Fort Lauderdale's team.
They were the better team. They had the better roster, top to bottom, and you look at it sucks for the Canadians who are looking for their trophy back in their country, but to pull off the down 0-3, force Game 7 would have been just the second team to lose 4 straight after being up 3-0. First time since the 1942 Toronto Maple Leafs.
Davey was talking about this before the show. Davey's about to turn 30, and a Canadian NHL team has not won a Stanley Cup in his lifetime. 1993, Montreal Canadiens was the last Stanley Cup champion from Canada.
You know what Canadian fans are doing right now? They're joining in on the Twitter argument with the Olympic sports.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
They're talking about all their playoff appearances.
Yeah, playoff appearances.
Or how well they've done in alpine skiing at the Olympics right now.
How many teams of their group made it to the postseason? That's what they're doing in order to find some type of happiness. I mean, in the lifetime of Davey Hudson, that's the headline now. That'll be on That's going to be all over the country now.
Do Canadians get angry with their teams? They're such a nice people.
Oh, they
very
have to,
polite. Like the only time I can remember a Canadian backlash was Vancouver and the riot. Remember they lost Game 7 to Boston, I think it was, and they had riots in Vancouver.
So they do
based
care.
on the loss, but that's it. Like I feel like they should riot every summer based on no team winning. I mean, this is your sport. This is like Canada's thing, and to not make it happen.
I don't think Edmonton's going anywhere for a while with Connor McDavid.
I wouldn't think so either,
Just saying,
but
man.
you got to break through at some point.
Dude is legit. Hang on, we got some info coming in from Colin here. He says,
Better be good, Colin.
they also brought the cup to the Elbow Room in Fort Lauderdale. It's a classic beach bar back in 1938. That's right up our alley, Chad.
So the Elbow Room was founded in 1938?
Yes.
Okay, because I was about to say, I don't think the Florida Panthers existed in 1938.
No, the classic beach bar founded in 1938. They
Gotcha.
brought the cup there.
Nice.
Do
they drink, what's the drink of choice? Some sort of daiquiri down on the beach? Do they drink daiquiris out of the Stanley Cup?
Did you
at the Elbow Room?
You say that
is it
reminds
Elbow
me,
Room or the Elbow Room? Elbow Room?
ELBO is how you spell it, too.
I love it.
It reminds me of the Sports Center teaser commercial back in the day where they won the Stanley Cup, some team, and then they're passing around the cup and everyone's drinking from the cup. And then, we bought a round of beers for the entire bar and everyone drank out. And so everyone on camera has herpes on their lip because they shared the cup.
I don't even remember that one. That's awesome, though.
You're kind of looking at it going, what is that? And then you see like 2 or 3 later, you're like, oh, this is awesome. Like, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
All the fans in the background have it.
I just like the idea of localized beverages out of the cup based on where you are. So, like, the flavor of the beverage of choice in each market.
Chad, I don't believe in jinxes or I'm not very superstitious. Remember when the Stanley Cup made its way through Nashville and everyone was like afraid to even like pose for a picture next to it?
You don't touch it, right?
You don't touch it, but some were so afraid that they may like get knocked into it that they didn't even take a photo with it. And I'm thinking, let me go up here and grab this Stanley Cup and, pose with it above my head like a champion, like this guy at the Elbow Room.
That's great.
What do you think about that place? It looks like the Days Inn in Panama City Beach.
I mean, it looks like something that's been around for a while.
It looks like an establishment with a drain in the middle of the floor.
Yeah, it looks like when you see those Facebook groups of like 1990s or 1980s, whatever, of a town, that's one of the photos you'd see.
This
from the
photo,
80s or 90s
you would see
was
this
that
photo
logo.
when MySpace was around.
Hey, everybody remember the elbow room in 1990? And it would be that photo.
Like Bar Nashville.
That's what I think about. So, Montreal Canadiens, Ottawa Senators, Toronto Maple Leafs. Continuing down, you've got Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver. That's 7 teams I just counted in Canada.
Where were the Preds? They would have been where?
Oh, Hamilton, Ontario.
Hamilton, yeah.
Yeah, Hamilton, Ontario. So I think that's 7.
7, yeah, that sounds right.
That's just, it's crazy to think about any group of 7, especially in one country, not breaking through and winning one cup over 30 years. 30-plus years.
And some of the years have been awful. And then Winnipeg just came back.
And it's not like these teams have been bad throughout. They just haven't won the cup. Nuts.
Well, some of them have been really bad. But you have, the last one was when?
1993, I think, Montreal.
Yeah, there's a dry spell there. Keep it going. And it burns them to have the cup in Florida. They hate the non-traditional markets.
Well, and Tampa has gone on runs recently, too. So it's not.
Florida, Nashville had success for a bit.
Yeah, didn't win a cup. But
Davey, what are we looking at here?
So that's actually a picture of Jason Tatum and Matthew Tkachuk back in middle school. These guys went to middle school together, and this year one won the Stanley Cup Finals,
awesome.
and the other won the NBA Finals.
That's awesome.
Where are these guys from?
This is Chaminade College Prep in St. Louis.
Wow. You don't think about many great hockey players coming from St. Louis.
No.
But Matthew Tkachuk is one of them.
Did Nelly go to school with them as well?
Maybe. Maybe Tony Vitello, who's also from St. Louis, tying it back in. I think they're a little bit older, those two.
Chad, there's a $21 billion antitrust lawsuit against the NFL that's headed to jury deliberations tomorrow. And if the verdict falls in favor of the plaintiffs, I can't wait to see how the NFL responds to this. Because when you hear antitrust and leagues or conferences or sports entities, I think of the NCAA and how they just took a step back, right? And they just stepped aside. Would the NFL just step aside, or do they already have a plan lined up, knowing that, yeah, likely we could lose this case, but we're going to put some parameters and guardrails up for the way we want to argue this case moving forward and go ahead and have some negotiations going behind the scenes, much like they did with the sports gambling. 2018, Murphy against the sporting organizations. The Supreme Court came back and ruled that the Professional and Amateur Protections Act was going to be overruled from 1992, I believe. This was in 2018. And the NFL spent millions on that, probably knowing they weren't going to win. But coming off of that verdict, off of that ruling, they set up big-time billion-dollar deals with the mega companies that we all know today, like DraftKings, FanDuel, and much more, BetMGM. You'll see them in your favorite team's facility or while you're watching a game nationally. And if the plaintiffs here, if they end up winning against what was NFL Sunday Ticket, the NFL doesn't play the role of beta, ever. They're the lead actor. They're the alpha. And while I think the ruling could end up being the alpha of the storyline, I doubt the NFL's sitting back going, you know what, we'll just chalk this up to a loss. They've had wins and losses before, but in the big picture, they always win. And I'm fascinated to see the path that they take if the verdict isn't going in their direction, given the fact that what could be $7 billion is times 3 in these instances, so it's up to $21 billion. That's no chump change, even for NFL owners.